Have you ever realized almost everything you know about history probably came from movies? Yeah, that's a little concerning, because movies don't really care about being accurate. They care about making you go, wow, that's cool. So they add drama, throw in some slow motion, and sometimes just make things up completely. And we just accept it. Like, yeah, sounds right. But the truth is, a lot of those historical facts you've believed are basically Hollywood fan fiction with a massive budget. And today we're breaking them down one by one. Trust me, at some point you're going to pause and think, wait, how long have I actually believed this? Story 1. Vikings never wore horned helmets. If you think Vikings always wore horned helmets, congratulations, Hollywood got you good. It looks insanely cool like main character energy the second they walk in, but in real life, not a thing. Those horned helmets mostly came from theater costumes and later pop culture, not actual battle gear. Think about it. You are running fighting dodging attacks with two giant horns sticking out of your head. You are way more likely to hook yourself on a Dora shield or worse, your own teammate, before you even reach the enemy. Real Vikings were not trying to turn their heads into coat racks. They were trying to survive, not cosplay for long-distance recognition. And the funniest part, one of the most iconic images of Vikings is completely wrong. And if you think that lie was big, the next one is going to hit you with a full weight what moment. Story 2. Gladiators were not expected to die every fight. Movies make it seem like every gladiator match was basically walk in no way out. Like the moment they step into the arena, the dramatic music already knows how this ends. But in real life, that would make zero sense. You do not spend time and money training a fighter, feeding them, building their skills, just to throw them away every weekend. Gladiators were expensive. Think elite athletes, not disposable extras. A lot of matches actually had rules, referees, and a pretty solid chance of survival. The goal was entertainment, not burning money for fun. You do not sign $1 million star and then go, all right, big game today? Please die. Even the Romans were not that irrational. The whole every fight is life or death idea, that is just Hollywood turning up the drama for ticket sales. And the thing movies use to decide who lives or dies is even more wrong in a very interesting way. Story 3. Thumbs down might not mean kill him. Thumbs down means kill him. Right? If you have watched any Roman movie, you are probably 100% convinced. The emperor sits up high, the arena goes silent, and then he slowly turns his thumb down like he is leaving a 1-star Yelp review. And that is it, game over. Looks perfect, feels cinematic, and very possibly wrong. The truth is, historians still argue about this. Some theories suggest the Romans used completely different gestures, and in some cases a thumbs up might have actually meant finish him. So yeah, we might have had the entire signal system backwards this whole time, which means all those movie scenes where everyone nods like, yep, that's how it worked, could be confidently wrong. And if something this simple got misunderstood, Hollywood definitely did not stop there. Story 4. The pyramids were not built by slave armies. You probably picture thousands of slaves chained together getting shouted at, whipped non-stop, building the pyramids under the desert sun, right? Because that is exactly what movies have been teaching us for years. Super dramatic, great for trailers, but real life, not that simple. A lot of evidence suggests the pyramid builders were actually organized. Laborers fed, housed, even skilled workers with access to medical care. It looked more like a massive construction site than a nightmare labor camp. Now is it easy? Absolutely not. This was brutal, exhausting work. But it was not the constant whip-cracking work until you die scenario Hollywood loves to exaggerate. So no, not everyone was out there getting whipped 24/7 under the sun. And speaking of people, Hollywood turned into way more intense versions than reality. There is an even more famous group coming up next. Story 5. Spartans were not six-pack action figures 24/7. In movies, Sparta looks like one giant gym. Everyone has perfect abs, broad shoulders, slow-motion entrances, and somehow there is always epic music playing in the background. But real life, no golden filter, no soundtrack, just dust pressure and exhaustion. Spartans were trained from childhood in a system that was strict, harsh, and honestly brutal. Not cinematic cool, more like survival mode all the time. You did not wake up thinking, let me flex today. You woke up thinking, let me not get eliminated. And real war? No dramatic angles, no perfect lighting, just chaos, noise, and stress. Nobody was fixing their hair before battle. Nobody was hitting a pose for the camera. But here is the funny part. There is someone in history who got misunderstood even worse. All because of a joke that went way too far. Story 6. Napoleon was not short like the meme says. Napoleon being short. The internet loves that story. The moment you hear his name, you picture a tiny, angry, short king with attitude. Sounds believable until you realize it is almost completely wrong. In reality, Napoleon's height was pretty average for a man of his time. Nothing unusual. The confusion came from different measurement systems, and the British basically took that and ran with it for some top-tier historical trolling. So what started as a small misunderstanding turned into a centuries-long meme. In other words, Napoleon was not made short by history. He got hit with a PR attack from his enemies, and then the internet picked it up and upgraded it to global status. And once something becomes a meme, yeah, facts do not stand a chance. He may have conquered half of Europe, but he could not beat the internet. And if something as basic as height got twisted, wait until we get to famous historical quotes. Story 7. Let them eat cake. Might have never been said. Marie Antoinette and the line, "Let them eat cake." It fits perfectly right. A lavish queen. People are starving and she's like, well, just eat cake. Cold dramatic, very Hollywood. The problem is, she probably never said it. There is no solid evidence, no reliable record. The phrase actually existed earlier as a general critique of the wealthy. But at some point, someone looked at Marie Antoinette and went, yeah, she's perfect for this. And just like that quote plus famous figure equals packaged history, it is basically how memes work. Once it spreads, nobody checks the source anymore. If it sounds right, it sticks. So this is not really a fact, it is just really good content that everyone believed. And it is not just quotes that got rewritten. Even the way mysterious historical figures dressed is not what you think. Story 8. Ninjas did not dress in all black. Ninjas in all black outfits running across rooftops disappearing into the shadows. Feels like solid history, right? Yeah, not really. That all black look is more like stage costume than actual work gear. In traditional Japanese theater, people dressed in black were meant to be invisible on stage. And somehow that idea got pulled into real life and turned ninjas into the cinematic version we all know. But if you were a real ninja, wearing head-to-toe black would be the worst move possible. You would stand out immediately. The whole point was to blend in, dress like everyone else, move like everyone else, exist without being noticed. Real ninjas did not need you to look at them and go, wow. They needed you to not notice them at all. So yeah, if you are running around in full black, you are not a ninja. You are the first person to get spotted. And speaking of things movies completely reinvented, the Wild West in America is about to get the same treatment. Story 9. Cowboys did not have noon shootouts in the street. Two cowboys standing in the middle of the street, staring each other down, hands hovering over their guns, wind blowing, then bang. If you have seen Western movies, that scene is basically the signature move. But in real life, almost nobody wanted to turn themselves into a public target just to wait to get shot. Those cinematic duels were extremely rare. People were not lining up at high noon to settle personal drama like it was a scheduled event. The Wild West could be dangerous, sure, but it was not a perfectly scripted movie with good lighting and dramatic pauses. No slow motion, no background music, and definitely no one saying draw and waiting 3 seconds for effect. If conflict happened, it was fast, messy, and not cool at all. The Wild West was not running on a 24/7 movie channel. And if one of the most American images got exaggerated like this, wait until we get to a famous journey that got misunderstood even more. Story 10. Columbus did not prove the Earth was round. Columbus proving the Earth is round sounds like a massive textbook plot twist. One brave guy sails out to prove everyone else wrong. Very heroic, and also very wrong. People already knew the Earth was round long before Columbus. Ancient Greek scholars had even calculated its circumference pretty accurately. Columbus was not discovering that. He just believed he could reach Asia by sailing a different route and ended up somewhere he was not expecting. So no, he did not reveal some hidden truth. He basically got lost with a lot of confidence, and somehow the story got retold in a way that makes him look like he changed how humanity sees the entire world. And if the first 10 already flipped what you thought you knew, the next ones are where you start side-eyeing history itself. Story 11. Cleopatra was not just a seductive queen. When you hear Cleopatra, movies instantly give you one image, stunning dramatic walks in and the whole room goes silent. Maximum main character energy. But real life, way more complicated than that Hollywood version. Cleopatra was not just about looks. She was highly intelligent, spoke multiple languages, and was extremely skilled in politics. Those famous relationships, not just romance, they were strategy. While movies turn everything into emotional love stories, reality looked more like a high-stakes power chess match. In other words, Cleopatra was not just a seduction icon. She was playing the game at a very high level. Hollywood just repackaged it into something easier to sell. And if they simplified someone this complex, imagine what they did to the smaller details in history. Story 12. Knights were not walking metal robots. Movies make it look like once a knight puts on armor, they instantly become a walking refrigerator. Slow, stiff, fall down once and just lie there waiting for someone to reboot them. But in real life, if that were true, they would not last 5 minutes on a battlefield. Armor was designed to protect and allow movement. Knights could run, climb onto horses, and even get back up if they fell. Not the "help me, I've fallen and I can't get up" situation movies love to exaggerate. They had to be mobile. Otherwise, they were done. Mini hit: if a knight cannot get back on a horse, that is basically unemployment. So no, armor did not turn you into a statue. It was a survival tool. And if something that looks that heavy got misunderstood, imagine how badly the smaller details got twisted. Story 13. Pirates were not out there burying treasure every day. If movies are your source, you'd think pirates spent their time hunting treasure, drawing maps with a big X, then burying gold like it's some sandbox game. Sounds adventurous, romantic even. But in real life, nobody robs a ship, then goes, "Cool, let's bury this for later." Pirates were extremely practical. Whatever they got, they split it, spent it, or used it right away. Their lives were chaotic, dangerous, and short. There was no long-term investment plan involving buried gold and a return trip. That's just bad planning. Mini hit: if you're a real pirate, you don't need a treasure map. You need to survive the week. So yeah, the Hollywood version is basically a romantic upgrade for storytelling. And if pirates got turned into fairy tale characters, real battlefields were even less cinematic than you think. Story 14. Ancient battlefields were not cool. 1v1 showdowns. Movies make it look like ancient war was basically an outdoor UFC match. Two guys step forward, lock eyes, exchange some clean moves, then one falls in slow motion while epic music plays. Very cinematic. Real life, no director, no perfect angles, and definitely no one waiting for you to finish your pose before attacking. Actual battlefields were pure chaos. People yelling, dust everywhere, weapons clashing non-stop, and half the time you are not even sure who is on your side. There is no room to show off skills. It is reflexes, panic, and a lot of luck. Mini hit: if you pause for 2 seconds to look cool, you probably don't make it to the end of the scene. War was messy, loud, and very not aesthetic. And if the battlefield itself was that different, wait until you see what Hollywood did to legendary warriors. Story 15. Geisha were not as simple as movies make them look. If you watch movies, it is easy to think geisha are just women in beautiful kimonos, elaborate makeup, and that's it. A clean, simple image, easy to understand, very Hollywood. But in reality, way more complex. Geisha were highly trained artists, music, dance, conversation, traditional entertainment. Their role was not what movies often imply. They were part of a cultural system, an art form, and a social structure in Japan at the time. Mini hit: Hollywood looks at a complex cultural system and turns it into a few easy-to-digest scenes. So no, this is not a simple story. It is a layered system that only makes sense when you actually look closely. And if an entire culture can get simplified like that, imagine how easily smaller historical details get misunderstood. Story 16. Vomitorium was not a room for vomiting. You hear the word vomitorium and instantly picture a fancy Roman room where people eat too much, then go in to throw up and keep going. Sounds wild. Very Rome went hard. But yeah, none of that is real. A vomitorium was actually an architectural feature, large passageways and arenas designed to let crowds spill out quickly. Not people emptying their stomachs, just people exiting like a human waterfall. The name sounds dramatic, so the internet grabbed it and ran. And now it is one of those everyone knows this facts. That is completely wrong. Mini hit: Romans partied, sure, but not to the point of building dedicated puke rooms. So this is what happens when one dramatic word gets misunderstood and spreads like truth. And if a single word can cause that much confusion, Wait until we get to things you can actually see. Story 17. Castles were not gray and gloomy like in movies. If you think medieval castles were always dark, damp, and permanently stuck in a sad, rainy mood, you are not alone. Hollywood loves that dark and gloomy filter like it has been cloudy since the year 1200. But in reality, castles had color. They had tapestries, paintings, decorations, spaces that were actually meant to feel warm and lived in, at least by the standards of the time. Not the kind of place where wind howls dramatically and everyone stands in corners looking depressed. Mini hit. The Middle Ages did not have a built-in black and gray mode. Movies just turned the saturation off for effect. So history was way more colorful than you think. Time faded it, and Hollywood finished the job. And if even the colors got rewritten, the way people actually lived inside those walls is probably even more distorted. Story 18. Samurai were not just about swords and honor. Movies make you think samurai are always pulling out a katana, standing perfectly straight, dropping a deep quote, and then charging into battle like a philosopher who can fight. Sounds cool, but real life was not that cinematic. War is not where you express personality. It is where you survive. Samurai used bows, spears, and practical tactics. The sword was not always the main weapon, it just looks better on screen. In reality, no one cares how cool you look. They care whether you are still standing. Mini-hit war is not a movie. No one waits for you to finish your dramatic sword draw. So the quiet, honorable warrior image is only a small slice of reality. And if even legendary warriors get simplified like that, imagine how much bigger historical ideas get distorted. Story 19. People in the past did not all die at 30. You have probably heard this before. Back then, people only lived to 30. It makes history sound like a free trial, just getting started and suddenly expired. But that is not really how it worked. The issue is how the numbers are calculated. Average life expectancy was dragged down by high infant mortality. If many people died young, the average drops fast. But if you made it past that stage, living into your 50s, 60s, or even longer was completely possible. It was not 30 and done. Mini hit. People in the past did not live short lives. We just read the data without context. So history is not that strange, our interpretation is. And if even a simple number can be misunderstood like that, imagine how much bigger historical stories get adjusted along the way. Story 20. Tomb curses were not real-life horror movies. Movies make it seem like opening an ancient tomb triggers a full-on curse. Lights flicker, wind howls, someone coughs, and game over. Very dramatic, very cinematic. But in reality, there is no activate curse button. What people call a curse is usually coincidence, illness, or environmental factors like mold, bacteria, or toxic gases inside sealed spaces. Not some supernatural force waiting for you to open the door. The story spreads because it is exciting, not because it is accurate. Mini-hit movies need drama. Reality just needs science. So yeah, curses sound terrifying, but they are way less mystical than you think. And if something already mysterious gets exaggerated like that, imagine how much more complex power structures in history get oversimplified. Story 21. Kings were not final bosses controlling everything. Movies make kings look like final bosses, sit on a throne, say one line, and the world just obeys. Clean, powerful, very Hollywood. Real life, more like a giant group chat that never agrees on anything. Kings had to deal with nobles, advisors, generals, each with their own agendas, egos, and sometimes plans they did not bother to share. You do not just give orders. You negotiate, persuade, and occasionally pretend to agree so everything does not fall apart. Mini-hit politics is not a movie. It is messy, loud, and rarely synchronized. So no, kings were not always in control. Some days they were just trying to keep the system from crashing. And if top-level power is that chaotic, the battlefield is definitely not as neat as movies make it look. Story 22. Archers were not infinite ammo machine guns. Movies make archers look like medieval machine guns, draw, release, hit, repeat. 20 times in a row like they have auto-aim and unlimited arrows. Feels amazing to watch. Completely unrealistic. In real life, every arrow mattered. Once you shoot it, it is gone. And hitting a target while everything is chaotic. Dust noise, people running is way harder than standing still at a range. Your arms get tired, the bow is heavy, and everything is happening fast. Mini-hit. Archers are not machine guns, and battlefields do not come with aim assist. So the never miss, never run out image is just a cinematic upgrade to look cooler. And if weapons get buffed like a video game, the darker parts of history are often exaggerated just as much. Story 23. Plague doctors were not everywhere. Movies and the internet make it seem like anytime there was a disease outbreak, you would see those beaked mask doctors everywhere walking around like horror game NPCs. One look and you know something bad is about to happen. But in reality, not that common. The outfit did exist, but it was not something you would see on every street in every outbreak. It appeared in specific places and contexts. The reason it feels so widespread today is simple. It looks so unique that media turned it into a universal symbol. Mini hit. Just because a costume looks terrifying does not mean it was everywhere. So the most memorable image is often the most exaggerated one. And if even iconic visuals get blown out of proportion, the stories about people and power back then are probably even more distorted. Story 24. Not every Roman emperor was insane like in the movies. Movies make the Roman Empire feel like a never-ending reality show. Emperors waking up each day thinking, what shocking thing should I do today? Wild, cruel, unpredictable. And sure, a few rulers really were like that, but not all of them. In reality, many emperors governed, steadily made practical decisions, and kept a massive empire running. The problem? That is not exactly box office material. No one buys a ticket to watch someone do their job well. Mini-hit drama sells tickets. Competent leadership does not get a trailer. So Hollywood picks the most extreme examples and turns them into the norm. And if even the people at the very top get misrepresented like that, the rest of history is probably even more distorted. Story 25. Princesses were not girls waiting to be saved. Movies make it seem like princesses just stay in castles, wear nice dresses, stare out the window, and wait for someone to rescue them, like side characters in their own story. But in real life, many princesses were major players. They were involved in political marriages, negotiations, alliances, and sometimes directly influenced the fate of entire kingdoms. Not a damsel in distress, more like a strategist in disguise. The dress was just the surface. Behind it was calculation. Mini-hit politics fairy tales. And in real life, no one waits for a prince if they can write their own story. So the fragile and helpless image is just the simplified version for movies. And if even princesses get reduced like that, the power systems around them are definitely more complex than you think. Story 26. The American Revolution was not just farmers beating an empire. Movies love the perfect underdog story. A bunch of farmers pick up guns, stand up to a massive empire, and somehow win. Inspiring, clean, very Hollywood. But real life way more complicated. This was not just farmers versus empire. There was politics strategy, financing, and major support from other countries, especially France. It was not a solo run. Mini-hit, not a simple underdog movie, more like a layered game with multiple players and agendas. So the victory did not come from courage alone, it came from a whole system working behind the scenes. And if a major historical event gets simplified like that, everyday details in history are probably exaggerated even more. Story 27. People in the past did not all have horror-level teeth. Movies make it seem like the moment you go back in time, everyone has dark broken teeth like one smile and you are turning off the TV. Instant signal, yep, this is the past. But in reality, not everyone looked like that. Yes, dental hygiene was not as advanced as today, but it does not mean the entire population had pitch-black ruined teeth. Films exaggerate this detail as a visual shortcut, so you immediately recognize the setting without needing explanation. Mini-hit, bad teeth in movies are not history. They are time-saving storytelling. So Hollywood adds that detail to say this is the past, not because it was universally true. And if even something as small as teeth gets exaggerated, imagine how much more gets distorted that you cannot easily see. Story 28. Ancient statues were not pure white like you think. You look at Greek and Roman statues in museums and think, wow, ancient people had amazing minimalist taste, clean white, timeless. It fits perfectly with modern aesthetics. Plot twist, they used to be colorful. And not subtle colors either. Bright reds, blues, yellows with detailed painted features. Over thousands of years, the paint faded, leaving behind the bare white stone you see today. And your brain fills in the gap. They must have liked it this way. Nope. That is just time turning the saturation all the way down. Mini-hit history was way more colorful. You are just looking at the 2,000-year faded version. So what you see is not the original, it is the after-image without the before. And if even color can disappear like that, what you think you understand about the past might only be a small piece of the full picture. Story 29. Humans did not live alongside dinosaurs. If you grew up with cartoons, there is a good chance you once believed humans and dinosaurs lived at the same time. Like hunting in the morning, dodging a T-Rex at noon, and telling stories in a cave at night. Childhood logic, it feels right. The problem? Completely wrong. Dinosaurs went extinct about 65 million years ago. Humans showed up way later. The gap is so huge, it is not a different era, it is an entirely different timeline. Mini-hit. This is not history, it is a childhood myth your brain kept because it sounded fun. We just see two ancient things and connect them. Brain goes, yeah, same timeline. But nope. So there were no humans running from dinosaurs outside of movies or your childhood imagination. And if a basic misunderstanding like that can stick around, imagine how much more complex ideas get even more distorted. Story 30. Salem was not like the witch hunt movies you have seen. Movies make Salem look like a massive dramatic witch hunt, crowds screaming, fires burning, everything staged like a big-budget horror film. But real-life scary in a very different way. No cinematic scenes, no intense soundtrack. Just fear, suspicion, and accusations spreading like rumors online. People did not need solid evidence, just enough others to believe it. Mini-hit, real-life horror does not need special effects. It is terrifying, because it actually happened. So Salem was not a horror movie. It was a story about mass psychology and how quickly things can spiral out of control. And if a real event can be cinematic-iced like that, the way we see entire periods of history is probably shaped more than we realize. Story 31. Medieval people did not live like they did not know what bathing was. Movies make the Middle Ages look like a time where bathing simply did not exist. Everyone has dirty hair, is greasy, clothes look like they survived 3 wars, and the air itself feels questionable. Basically a zombie era just without the zombies. But in reality, not true. People did bathe. They had hygiene habits and understood that not smelling terrible was a huge advantage when living around others. Sure, no modern spas or minty shower gel, but no one was signing up for a lifelong never shower challenge either. Mini-hit. The Middle Ages were not a zombie era. Hollywood just turned on the dirty filter for drama. So the exaggeration makes you think the past was worse than it really was. And at this point, the question is not how much movies got wrong, but how much of it you believed was real. So the real question is not how much movies lied to you, it is how much of it you actually believed. Be honest, was there one that made you go, wait, how long have I believed this? Like 1 second you felt confident, and the next your brain was like, yeah, we need an update. Do not pick the funniest one. Pick the one that makes you slightly uncomfortable. The one you kind of wish you never heard. The one where if someone brings it up, you are immediately changing the subject. Drop it in the comments, I genuinely want to know where history got you. Hit like if your brain just got fact-checked. And subscribe, because out there logic is still taking L's every day.